The rain-slicked streets of Seattle glistened under the streetlights, but inside the tiny cafe, Harper Quinn was drowning in her own storm. She wiped the counter for the third time that hour, her hands trembling as the eviction notice burned a hole in her apron pocket. At 26, she was one bad shift away from losing everything: her apartment, her dreams, her fragile hope. Then he walked in. Oliver Grayson, 28, CEO of Grayson Tech, Seattle's darling of innovation, strode through the door like he owned the place. His tailored suit screamed wealth, but his tired eyes hinted at a man carrying a weight heavier than money. Harper had seen him before, always alone, always ordering a black coffee, always leaving a tip that could cover her rent. Tonight, though, he didn't sit at his usual corner table. He walked straight to her. "I need a favor," Oliver said, his voice low, urgent. "And I'll pay you enough to change your life." Harper froze, her rag mid-swipe. "I'm not that kind of girl," she shot back, half joking, half wary. He laughed, a sound that was both sharp and warm. "Not that. I need a fiancé. A fake one. For 1 month." Her heart skipped. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." He slid a business card across the counter, the kind embossed with gold. $10,000. Be my fiancé for a company gala and a few public appearances. No strings attached. Harper's mind raced. 10,000 could clear her debts, keep her apartment, maybe even let her breathe for the first time in years. But Oliver Grayson, the man whose face was plastered on every tech magazine? She wasn't just a barista. She was a nobody with a secret she'd buried so deep even her closest friends didn't know. A secret that could unravel everything if she stepped into his world. "Why me?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. Oliver leaned closer, his cologne a mix of cedar and ambition. "Because you're real. People believe real." She wanted to laugh. Real? If only he knew. But the weight of that eviction notice pressed harder, and she found herself nodding before she could stop. Deal. The next morning, Harper stood in front of a sleek downtown penthouse, her thrift store coat a stark contrast to the glass and steel building. Oliver's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Lila, handed her a contract thicker than a novel. "Sign here, initial there," Lila said, barely looking up from her tablet. The terms were clear. Play the part, smile for the cameras, don't ask questions. In return, 10 grand and a wardrobe to match. Harper signed, her hand steady but her stomach churning. She wasn't just signing away a month. She was stepping into a lie that could expose her. She'd spent years hiding who she was, blending into the background. But now she'd be under a spotlight. As Lila led her to a stylist's suite, Harper caught her reflection in a mirror. Her auburn curls were wild, her freckled face bare of makeup. She looked like herself, but who was that? Really? Oliver appeared, now in a casual sweater that did nothing to hide his wealth. "You clean up nice," he said, his grin teasing but kind. "You haven't seen me try," she replied, matching his tone. But inside she was terrified. Not of him, but of what this charade might cost her. The first test came that evening at a charity dinner. Harper, draped in a sapphire dress that hugged her curves, felt like an imposter as she looped her arm through Oliver's. The ballroom was a sea of Seattle's elite. Tech moguls, investors, and journalists with eyes like hawks. Oliver's hand rested lightly on her back, guiding her through the crowd, and for a moment, she felt safe. Then a woman in a crimson gown approached, her smile sharp as a blade. "Oliver, darling," the woman purred. "Who's this?" "Harper Quinn," Oliver said smoothly. "My fiancé." The word hit Harper like a shockwave. She forced a smile, her heart pounding as the woman, Elena Vasquez, a board member, studied her like a specimen. "Charming," Elena said, her tone dripping with skepticism. How unexpected. Harper's grip on Oliver's arm tightened. She could feel the room closing in. Every glance a question she couldn't answer. She wasn't just playing a role. She was hiding a truth that could destroy this carefully constructed lie. Years ago, she'd left behind her old name, her old life, her identity as someone else entirely. Harper Quinn was a mask, one she'd worn so long it almost felt real. Almost. As the night wore on, Oliver leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "You're doing great," he whispered. "Just keep smiling." She did, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of the small, locked box under her bed, filled with letters and photos she hadn't touched in years. The weight of her secret pressed harder than ever, and as she caught Oliver's gaze, kind, searching, maybe even genuine, she wondered how long she could keep it buried. The days blurred into a whirlwind of fittings, photo shoots, and carefully choreographed appearances. Harper learned to navigate Oliver's world with a smile that hid her panic. She memorized his favorite coffee order, black, no sugar, his sister's name, Clara, and the way he deflected questions about his personal life with a charming laugh. But every moment spent playing his fiancée felt like a tightrope walk over a pit of her own secrets. One afternoon, they sat in a sunlit park for a staged, candid photo shoot. Oliver tossed a frisbee to a dog that wasn't his, while Harper laughed on cue, her auburn curls catching the light. The photographer, a wiry man named Theo, kept shouting, "Perfect! So in love!" Harper's stomach twisted. She wasn't in love. She was terrified. But when Oliver's hand brushed hers, his fingers lingering a beat too long, she felt a spark she hadn't expected. It wasn't real, she told herself. Couldn't be. "You're a natural," Oliver said later. As they sat on a bench, the camera crew packing up. "I almost believe we're engaged." "Don't get used to it," Harper quipped, but her voice wavered. She looked away, focusing on the cherry blossoms drifting to the ground. She couldn't let herself feel anything real, not when her past was a ticking bomb. That night, at a rooftop cocktail party, the tension escalated. Harper, in a sleek emerald gown, stood beside Oliver as he pitched Grayson Tech's latest AI project to investors. She nodded at the right moments, her smile polished, but her eyes kept darting to Elena Vasquez, who lingered nearby, watching, always watching. "You're quite the mystery, Harper," Elena said, sidling up with a glass of champagne. "No social media, no history. It's almost like you appeared out of nowhere." Harper's throat tightened. "I'm just a private person," she said, forcing a laugh. Elena's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Everyone has a past. I'm very good at finding them." The threat hung in the air, sharp and cold. Harper excused herself, her heart racing as she slipped into the bathroom. She gripped the sink, staring at her reflection. The girl in the mirror looked like Harper Quinn, but beneath the makeup and the dress was someone else. Someone who'd run from a small town, a family, a name she'd left behind. She'd been born Henry Quinn, and though she'd transitioned years ago, the world didn't always forgive or forget. If Elena dug too deep, Harper's carefully built life could collapse. When she returned, Oliver was waiting, his brow furrowed. "You okay?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. "Fine," she lied, but his hand on her arm felt like an anchor. For a moment, she wanted to tell him everything, to unburden herself of the weight she'd carried alone. But she couldn't, not yet. The next week brought a new challenge: dinner with Oliver's family. His sister Clara, a 32-year-old environmental lawyer with a quick wit, welcomed Harper warmly at their waterfront estate. But Oliver's father, Richard Grayson, was another story. A retired tech titan with a steely gaze, he sized Harper up like a business deal gone wrong. "So, Harper," Richard said over dessert, his tone deceptively casual. "Tell me about your family." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Not much to tell," she said, her voice steady despite the panic clawing at her chest. "I'm estranged. Haven't seen them in years." Richard's eyes narrowed. "That's unusual for someone Oliver's chosen." Clara jumped in, changing the subject, but the damage was done. Harper felt Richard's suspicion like a physical weight. Later, as she and Oliver stood on the balcony overlooking the Puget Sound, he turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You don't talk about your past," he said quietly. "I don't need to know, but I want to, if you'll let me." Harper's heart ached. She wanted to trust him, to let him see the real her. But the risk was too great, not just for her but for him. If her secret came out, it wouldn't just ruin her. Could tank his company, his reputation, everything he'd built. "I'm not that interesting," she said, forcing a smile. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw something dangerous. Hope. And for the first time, she wondered if she was falling for the man she was supposed to deceive. The gala was the pinnacle of their charade, a glittering event at the top of the Space Needle, where Grayson Tech would unveil its new AI platform. Harper stood beside Oliver, her black gown shimmering under the chandeliers, her heart pounding louder than the jazz band. The room was a who's who of tech giants, and every smile felt like a test. She played her part flawlessly, laughing at Oliver's jokes, resting her hand on his arm, but inside, she was unraveling. Elena Vasquez was there, of course, circling like a shark. During a quiet moment, she cornered Harper near the bar. "I did some digging," Elena said, her voice low and venomous. "Harper Quinn doesn't exist before 5 years ago. Care to explain?" Harper's blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice steady but her hands trembling. Elena smirked. "I'll find out. And when I do, Oliver's little fairy tale ends." Harper excused herself, her pulse racing as she slipped onto the observation deck. The city sparkled below, but she felt like she was falling. She'd known this could happen, had dreaded it every day since she signed that contract. But now, with Elena so close to the truth, the walls were closing in. Oliver found her, his face etched with concern. "What's wrong?" he asked, stepping close. The wind tugged at his tie, and for a moment, he looked less like a CEO and more like a man who cared. "I can't do this anymore," Harper whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm not who you think I am." "Then tell me who you are," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "I don't care about the contract. I care about you." The words hit her like a punch. She wanted to believe him, to spill everything. Her childhood in a small Oregon town, the family that rejected her, the years spent rebuilding herself as Harper. But fear stopped her. "You don't know what you're asking," she said, turning away. He reached for her hand, pulling her back. "Try me." For a moment, they stood there, the city lights blurring behind them. Harper's heart screamed to trust him, but her mind flashed to the headlines, the fallout, the shame. She pulled her hand away. "I need time," she said, and fled back to the gala, leaving Oliver alone in the wind. The next day, Harper tried to focus at the cafe, but her thoughts were a mess. She burned 2 lattes and dropped a tray of mugs before her manager sent her home. Alone in her tiny apartment, she pulled out the locked box under her bed. Inside were relics of her old life. A photo of a teenage boy with her eyes, a letter from her mother begging Henry to come home, a driver's license she hadn't used in years. She hadn't looked at them in so long, but now they felt like evidence waiting to be found. Her phone buzzed. Oliver. "Meet me tonight," his text read. "No cameras, no act. Just us." Against her better judgment, she went. They met at a quiet pier, the water lapping softly against the docks. Oliver looked different. No suit, Just jeans and a hoodie, his hair mussed by the breeze. "I don't know what you're hiding," he said, "but I know you're scared. And I know I'm falling for you." Harper's breath caught. "You can't," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't know me." "Then let me," he said, stepping closer. "Whatever it is, it won't change how I feel." She wanted to believe him, but the weight of her secret was too heavy. She shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, and walked away, leaving him standing alone by the water. Harper spent the next 2 days avoiding Oliver's calls. She worked double shifts at the cafe, hoping the grind would drown out her thoughts, but every quiet moment brought his words back. "I'm falling for you." She wanted to run to him, to tell him everything, but fear kept her rooted. Elena's threat loomed larger with every passing hour, and Harper knew it was only a matter of time before her past was exposed. Then it happened. She was wiping down tables when her phone buzzed with a news alert. Grayson Tech CEO's fiancé. A fraud? The article, penned by an anonymous source, hinted at Harper's lack of a past, with vague but pointed references to secrets and deceptions. Her heart sank. Elena had made her move. She called Oliver, her hands shaking. "Did you see it?" she asked when he picked up. "I saw it," he said, his voice calm but tight. "Meet me at my office. Now." Harper arrived at Grayson Tech's headquarters, a glass tower that felt like a fortress. Oliver was waiting in his corner office, the city sprawling below. He didn't look angry, just tired. "Tell me what's going on," he said. "No more hiding." She took a deep breath, her hands clenched. "My name wasn't always Harper," she began, her voice trembling. "I was born Henry Quinn. I transitioned 5 years ago. I left my old life behind. My family, my hometown, everything. I didn't tell you because I was scared. Of losing this. Of losing you." The silence that followed was deafening. Oliver's face was unreadable, and for a moment, Harper thought she'd lost him. Then he stood, crossing the room to her. "Thank you," he said softly, "for trusting me." She blinked, stunned. "You're not angry?" "Why would I be?" he said, his voice steady. "You're Harper. That's all I need to know." Tears spilled down her cheeks as he pulled her into a hug. For the first time in years, she felt seen. Not as a secret, not as a lie, but as herself. But the relief was short-lived. Lila burst in, her face pale. "The board's calling an emergency meeting," she said. "Elena's pushing for a vote to oust you, Oliver. She's saying Harper's a liability." Oliver's jaw tightened. "Let her try," he said, but Harper saw the worry in his eyes. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about his company, his legacy. That night, they strategized in Oliver's penthouse. Clara, Oliver's sister, joined them, her legal mind sharp and ready. "Elena's playing dirty," Clara said, scrolling through the article. "But we can fight this. Harper, you don't have to go public. But if you're willing, we can control the narrative." Harper hesitated. Going public meant exposing herself to the world. Her past, her transition, everything she'd fought to protect. But as she looked at Oliver, who'd stood by her without hesitation, she knew she couldn't hide anymore. "I'll do it," she said. "For us." The next morning, they held a press conference. Harper stood at the podium, her heart pounding as cameras flashed. Oliver was beside her, his presence steadying. "My name is Harper Quinn," she began, her voice clear, "and I'm transgender. I've spent years hiding who I am, but I'm done running. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." The room erupted in questions, but Harper felt a weight lift. She'd told her truth, and for the first time, she felt free. The fallout was immediate. Social media exploded, some praising Harper's courage, others spewing hate. Grayson Tech stock dipped, and Elena pushed harder. rallying board members to question Oliver's judgment. But Oliver fought back. He held meetings, reassured investors, and stood by Harper publicly and privately. "You're not a liability," he told her one night, as they sat in his penthouse, the city lights flickering outside. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." Harper wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. She'd bared her soul, and the world was still deciding her worth. At the cafe, her co-workers treated her differently, some with awe, others with distance. She felt exposed, raw, but Oliver's unwavering support kept her grounded. The final showdown came at the board meeting. Elena presented her case, her voice dripping with disdain as she painted Harper as a scandal waiting to happen. "This company can't afford distractions," she said. "Oliver's judgment is compromised." Harper sat in the back, her hands clasped tightly. She'd insisted on being there, even though Oliver had urged her to stay home. This was her fight too. When Elena finished, Oliver stood, his presence commanding the room. "Harper isn't a distraction," he said. "She's a reminder of what this company stands for. Innovation, courage, authenticity. If you can't see that, maybe you're the ones who don't belong here." Clara, armed with legal documents, revealed Elena's own conflicts of interest. A shady deal with a rival company. The board turned on Elena, and by the end of the meeting, she was out, her campaign against Harper and Oliver in ruins. As the room cleared, Harper approached Oliver, her heart full. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Risk everything for me." "I didn't," he said, smiling. "I did it for us." Months later, the dust had settled. Grayson Tech stock recovered, buoyed by a successful AI launch and a wave of positive press about Oliver's modern love story. Harper left the cafe, enrolling in community college to study graphic design, her long-buried dream. She and Oliver were no longer faking it. Their relationship had grown real, messy, and beautiful. One evening, they returned to the cafe where it all began. The same chalkboard still stood, now with a new message: "Love wins." They sat at their old table, hands entwined, no cameras, no pretense. Harper looked at Oliver, her heart lighter than it had ever been. "I was scared," she said, "of being seen, but you saw me." Oliver squeezed her hand. "And I'm never looking away." Their story wasn't just a headline. It was a testament to courage, to love, to the power of owning your truth. And as they laughed over cold coffee, Harper knew she'd found something worth more than $10,000. A home, a partner, and herself.